In just 3 short minutes in the courtroom, a 10-year-old child brought the entire court to a standstill and completely changed the fate of a family. While all eyes were focused on the powerful adults, the little girl stood up, challenging every prejudice and injustice. Does she have the courage to face those who hold immense power, or will the small voice of a child make them tremble in fear? This story is not just a battle for justice. It's a lesson about the power of truth, courage, and the often overlooked voices that can move mountains. The story begins in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, where Claire Harris wakes up early in the cold kitchen, illuminated by the faint morning light. This single mother is accustomed to waking up before dawn, quickly preparing breakfast for her daughter, Lily, a smart and sensitive 10-year-old. Although Claire's life is busy and exhausting, juggling a day job at a coffee shop and cleaning work at night, she always strives to create a loving, safe space for her daughter. Yet, the fatigue is evident on her face. The traces of sleepless nights and worries about Lily's future are deeply etched in Claire's sad eyes. She knows that all her efforts are just a small part of the harsh survival battle they face. But every time she sees the hopeful look in Lily's eyes, she tells herself to keep going, even though her heart often falters. Lily, meanwhile, is not an ordinary child. Despite being only 10 years old, she has sharp thoughts and a depth of understanding beyond her years. Lily views the world around her with curious and insightful eyes. She understands that her mother is struggling with life, and although Claire sometimes tries to hide the difficulties, Lily still feels the tension in the air. She never complains, but at times when she sees her mother exhausted, Lily feels a deep sorrow creep into her heart. In the evenings, after Claire comes home late from work, Lily would sit by the window, staring out at the distant streets, listening to the sounds of life outside. But her heart was filled with questions about the future. Will there come a day when her mother smiles happily, or will they both always live in the shadows of poverty? Their lives are not easy, and sometimes Claire wonders if she has the strength to continue. She has sacrificed so much, but deep inside, a sense of helplessness and disappointment always lingers. It's not that she doesn't love Lily, but the feeling of powerlessness when she cannot provide her daughter with the things she deserves aches within her. On those sleepless nights, Claire silently hopes that one day, when Lily grows up, she won't feel left behind, won't feel deprived of the love and care that Claire couldn't fully give. But right now, nothing can change. The two of them still live in the old, decaying apartment where everything seems to be slowly falling apart. Every day is a struggle to hold on to hope, and sometimes it's a very difficult battle. However, nothing can stop the steps of Claire and Lily. Despite the fatigue and sorrow that remain, seeing Lily's bright face gives Claire the strength to keep going. She knows that no matter how difficult life may be, the love for her daughter is a flame that will never fade in her heart. But is that enough to change everything? This question echoes in Claire's mind every day. That day, the morning air seemed to thicken in Claire's chest as she and Lily stepped out of their small apartment, facing a challenge Claire never wanted to face: the custody battle with Richard Adams, her ex-husband. Claire had long grown accustomed to relentless struggles, but every time she faced this court hearing, her heart grew heavier, as if every step she took was more burdensome than the last. The prolonged legal battles had drained her of so much strength and hope. Each time she sat in the courtroom, Claire felt as if she were being defeated from within. The sense of helplessness, the feeling of being unable to do anything but keep fighting, always tore at her. But she knew that no matter how tired she was, she could not give up. She could not let Richard, the man who had once been her husband, take away the right to raise Lily, the only daughter she had left. Lily walked beside her mother, her deep black eyes still observing the world around her. But in that gaze, it wasn't hard to notice the worry. Though only 10 years old, Lily had an understanding of the life she and her mother were facing. She could feel the tension in the air, sensing how every step Claire took seemed to grow heavy, as if her mother was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Yet, Lily said nothing. She silently held her mother's hand, a quiet but unwavering show of support. Her small hand seemed to carry a message: "Mom, I'm here, and I'll always be by your side." On the way to the courthouse, Claire felt a deep sadness invade her mind. She watched the cars rush by, pedestrians hurrying along the sidewalk, yet the feeling of loneliness remained within her. Everyone around her seemed to have a life that wasn't hers, a life of people not struggling to regain custody of their child. The unending battle in the courtroom had left Claire weary, as though each step she took was a hopeless fight. But when she looked down at the small hand gripping hers, she felt strength. Lily, though not vocal, was the greatest source of encouragement for Claire at that moment. Entering the courthouse, Claire couldn't help but shudder. The coldness of the space inside made her steps falter. The bright lights, the cold chairs, and the tense atmosphere made her heart tighten. Lily walked beside her, head held high, but her eyes betrayed her worry. Claire knew that no matter how bad things got, she couldn't let Lily see her weakness, so she forced a smile, even though it felt strained. Once again, she reminded herself that she couldn't give up. She didn't know if this hearing would bring the results she hoped for, but she would not lose hope, for she had Lily, and for her daughter, she would fight to the end. The feeling of exhaustion and anxiety overtook Claire's mind. Although she had faced these court hearings many times before, each time felt like she was already a defeated person, even though there had been no final verdict. Every time she walked into the courtroom, she wasn't just confronting the judgment of the law, but also the pain within her, an unhealable pain, a loss so great that she couldn't change it. The first loss was when her family fell apart. Every time she thought back to the days when Richard and she were together, the happy images of raising Lily together flooded her mind. But then everything shattered like a dream. Claire couldn't understand why a family that seemed perfect could fall into such a situation. She felt like she had lost the most important part of her life, a part she could never find again. Every night, when sitting alone in the quiet apartment, the emptiness weighed heavily on her heart. She wondered if there was anything more she could do, if she could have kept the family together, but the answer always came in the silence of wounds yet to be healed. The second loss was when she realized she couldn't provide a stable future for Lily. Claire always tried her best, but life always pushed her into harsh circumstances. She worked tirelessly from dawn until dusk, yet still couldn't give Lily the life she deserved. Every time she saw her daughter sitting in class, her eyes bright with dreams yet to be fulfilled, Claire felt a pang of sorrow in her heart. She felt she wasn't strong enough, not smart enough, to ensure a bright future for her daughter. Lily always smiled at her, but Claire knew that the worries in her daughter's heart might have never been expressed. And then, when she stepped into the courtroom, an indescribable sadness washed over her. The blinding lights in the room, the stern faces of the lawyers and judges made the space feel even colder. Claire wondered, could she win this battle? Could she regain custody of Lily? Or would all her efforts lead to an endless road of failure? The tension within her grew. She wanted to give Lily a stable life, but could she do it? Every step into the courtroom felt like walking deeper into the abyss of anxiety. The feelings of loss and disappointment seemed to compress in her chest. But then, when she looked at Lily standing beside her, holding her hand tightly, a strange mix of emotions flooded her. She felt an overwhelming sadness seeing her little girl, so young, carrying burdens that no child should bear. Yet, at the same time, Claire's heart was filled with love and determination. She knew that no matter how dark things seemed, she had to keep fighting. Lily needed her, and Claire couldn't let her daughter feel disappointed. That was the only reason she could stand firm despite the sadness and anxiety that always lingered. She had to fight for her daughter, for her child's future, for the hope still alive in her heart. But would this fight be worth it? And did she have the strength to endure all the long, sleepless nights filled with worry? These questions kept swirling in her mind, making it impossible for her to stop thinking, even though she knew Lily was still standing there with one simple wish: Mom, don't give up. In the courtroom, Richard Adams entered with a confident stride. His expensive suit fit perfectly, accentuating the appearance of a successful man. His hair was neatly combed, and though his face appeared cold, it radiated an arrogance that could not be hidden. He walked in as if this were his domain, a place where he would reclaim the power he believed he rightfully deserved. The entire room seemed to fall silent. The only sound was the echo of Richard's footsteps, and the eyes of everyone present could not look away from him. Claire stood beside him, feeling small, like a shadow in the blinding light of the man before her. With each step Richard took, Claire felt the weight on her heart, as though she were the weaker one, unable to stand against him. Every word Richard spoke pierced Claire's heart. He began with words of self-importance, filled with challenge. I'm the only one who can provide Lily with a good future. Her mother may love her, but she can't give her what she needs. Each of his words felt like sharp knives cutting into Claire. He emphasized her shortcomings as a mother, pointing out the mistakes she could never undo. Claire felt as if she were being exposed in front of the entire court. Everything she had tried to hide was now laid bare. Each of Richard's criticisms, each word he uttered, seemed to highlight her helplessness. She could clearly feel the surprise and contempt in the eyes of the lawyers and the others in the room. making her feel even more embarrassed. Though Claire tried to stay calm, inside, everything was falling apart. She felt like a failure as a mother, unable to protect her daughter from the harsh words and relentless criticisms of the man who had once been her husband. The memories of the days when she and Richard were together now felt like wounds that would never heal, tearing at her heart all over again. How could she prove she was worthy? How could she face these words without letting them break her? But then, when she saw Lily's eyes sneak a glance in her direction, the weakness inside Claire disappeared. She knew she couldn't let Lily see her pain, couldn't let her daughter witness her failure. She had to stand strong, even though Richard was doing everything he could to break her spirit. Even though the injustice and criticism were closing in on her, Claire realized she could not lose. She could not let her own weakness cause Lily to suffer any more hurt. It was for Lily that Claire had to fight with everything she had, even though her heart was heavy with sorrow and disappointment. Although Claire had thoroughly prepared for this trial, doing everything she could to protect her daughter's rights, sitting across from Richard's lawyer made her feel as though she were facing an unstoppable force. The judgments from the lawyer came like unavoidable punches, each word like a heavy stone weighing down on Claire's shoulders. He exposed every flaw of hers without hesitation, from her financial struggles to her past relationships. Each word he spoke made Claire feel like a criminal, not because of any past mistakes, but because of a system that would never acknowledge her efforts. Claire sat silently, her fists clenched, but her eyes blurred with the tears that were about to fall. She had grown accustomed to fighting on her own, to doing everything she could to provide for Lily, but now she felt as though she had been cornered, unable to escape this legal system. These people, whom she thought would be fair and just, offered no hope. Every time Richard's lawyer pointed out her shortcomings, every time he made Claire's face fade into the background under the bright lights of the courtroom, Claire felt the injustice grow clearer and clearer. No one in the room saw the sleepless nights she spent working. No one understood the sweat she poured out just to take care of Lily. The judgments continued, each word like a cut to her soul, making it harder to stand firm. This system didn't recognize her efforts. The court, instead of trying to help her family, only looked at numbers, dry arguments, forgetting that every family has its own story, its own efforts that cannot be measured in money or work. Claire felt like she no longer had the strength to keep fighting. Every bit of hope seemed to be washed away by the harsh and unjust judgments of the legal system. The sorrow inside her grew heavier, weighing her down more and more. She looked at Richard's face, the man she had once loved, now standing before her like a conqueror. Everything seemed to be against her. No matter how hard she tried, Claire felt like a tiny grain of sand in the face of a massive wave of the system and its judgments. She didn't know if she had any chance left in this battle. The disappointment and sadness swelled inside her, making her want to give up, to leave this courtroom and escape from it all. But then, when she looked down at Lily's small hand gripping hers tightly, the weariness and despair no longer mattered. Lily needed her, and no matter what, Claire couldn't give up. Although the trial was not over, Claire felt a sense of temporary defeat spreading through her heart. All her efforts seemed futile against the confidence and power Richard and his legal team exuded. In that moment, when the judge's gaze and the eyes of the courtroom turned toward her, Claire felt like a grain of sand swept away by a great wave. She looked at Richard with his air of arrogance, a man who not only possessed power but also the cunning, the coldness of someone who always knew how to manipulate the system to his advantage. The entire courtroom seemed like a stage, and Claire was just an unnamed player, unable to compete. She felt so small, as though there was nothing left to hold on to. Every word from Richard's lawyer struck like a blow, rendering her arguments weak and unconvincing. The criticisms about her finances, about her unstable life, were like sparks that burned away all the faith she had struggled to maintain. Claire no longer had the strength to resist, and the more she thought, the more she felt as if she were standing before an immovable stone wall. All her efforts seemed meaningless, as if no one cared about the sacrifices and the love she had given to Lily. A heavy sense of loss enveloped Claire's heart. She felt as though she was losing everything she had fought for all these years, her dignity, her right to be a mother, and perhaps even the opportunity to change Lily's life. She had hoped that at least in this trial, she could prove she deserved the right to raise her child, but the reality was that she wasn't strong enough to face the system. Although she hadn't fully lost, this moment felt like a reminder that not all of her efforts would be rewarded. This feeling of loss didn't only stem from her weakness against Richard, but from within herself. She had always believed that if she tried hard enough, everything would change, but now all she felt was hopelessness. In her eyes, everything was slowly falling apart. She looked at Lily, her beloved daughter, and the sadness only deepened. How could she let her child live in a world where good things couldn't be easily attained? Claire's mind spun, but in the end, she realized that even though in this moment she felt defeated, if she stopped, Lily would have no one to rely on. That's why, despite the fatigue and the disappointment, she knew she had to keep fighting. The sadness and the feeling of loss couldn't stop her, but inside Claire, a small flame still burned, reminding her that no matter what, she wouldn't give up. Lily sat quietly beside her mother in the courtroom, her eyes intently observing every movement, every glance, and every word spoken by the adults around her. Though only 10 years old, Lily had an incredible sensitivity, a capacity to notice things that adults often overlooked. While everyone focused on the heated debates and the obvious developments of the trial, Lily was more attentive to the small details, the silences between the stories that no one else paid attention to. She couldn't fully understand everything that was happening, but she could sense the tension, the deception, and the wrongs that were unfolding around her. Whenever Richard's lawyer spoke, Lily focused on every single word, writing down everything she heard in a small notebook she always carried with her. This was no ordinary notebook. It was filled with her thoughts and observations, things that no one else noticed. Each page of that notebook was a piece of the story that adults never wanted to acknowledge. Lily had gotten used to recording everything, from the short stories her mother told her every evening to the important events she felt needed to be remembered. But today, her notebook became a secret weapon, a tool to help her mother uncover the truth. As Richard's lawyer continued to speak about the shortcomings in Claire's life, Lily realized that these words weren't the truth. She noticed Richard furrow his brow, trying to hide a flicker of anxiety, a sign that only someone truly observant would catch. Richard had always been confident, but today there was something in his eyes that Lily couldn't ignore. She wrote down the words Richard and his lawyer used, the details about finances, the insinuations about deals no one else in the courtroom seemed to notice. Lily knew something wasn't right. There were secrets that the adults were deliberately hiding. When Richard mentioned the money Claire couldn't repay, Lily wasn't frightened. Instead, she felt the oddness in the way the story was being told. She listened closely to every detail, and something in her mind began to click. Lily could sense that not everything Richard said was true, and there was a secret that she needed to uncover. She knew her mother wasn't like that. Her mom worked tirelessly for her. How could this man who had abandoned their family speak of her mother as a failure? With every word spoken, Lily grew more certain that what the adults were saying was only the surface of something much deeper. And as the trial entered its most tense moments, Lily began to take even more detailed notes in her notebook, not missing a single piece of information. She wasn't just recording Richard's lawyer's judgments. She was paying attention to the way they exchanged glances, the small gestures that no one else seemed to notice but which held dark secrets that she needed to uncover. It seemed like she was gathering pieces to uncover a story that the adults were desperately trying to hide. Despite the mounting tension in the courtroom, Lily wasn't scared. She knew what she was doing was important. This struggle wasn't just for her mother. It was a fight to find the truth, to ensure that her mom wasn't the only one bearing all the injustices. While the adults bickered and argued, Lily had found her own path, the path of truth, of determination, and of wisdom that far surpassed her years. At the end of the trial, when it seemed like everyone in the courtroom had lost all hope for the outcome of this battle, a heavy silence settled over the room. The weary, disheartened looks of the lawyers, the judge, and the spectators seemed to speak volumes. They all believed the battle had ended. Richard sat with a smug smile on his face, as if victory was already his. Everyone thought this was the final and unchangeable result. But then, just as the room sank into quiet, a small but determined voice rang out, shattering the stillness. "You're wrong," Lily said, her voice gentle yet filled with an undeniable certainty. The courtroom fell silent, as if time itself had paused. Everyone's eyes turned toward the little girl standing at the center of attention, and her words echoed in the air, shaking the space around them. Claire, sitting below, looked at her daughter, unable to hold back the tears that streamed down her face. In that moment, all the emotions within her surged, astonishment, deep emotion, but beneath it all, a profound sadness. Her little girl, the one she had protected all her life, was now standing up for the truth they had fought for all this time. Lily didn't look at anyone else except Richard and his lawyer. She had noted everything. She had observed, collected the details that the adults had overlooked, and now she was ready to confront those who had dared to belittle her mother. There was no fear in Lily's eyes, only a strong resolve and a single desire to prove the truth. She wasn't speaking these words just to defend her mother, but because she knew that justice had to prevail. In a world where adults could turn their backs on the truth, Lily stood up, not to prove herself right, but to protect what truly mattered: trust and fairness. The courtroom remained paralyzed in silence. No one had a chance to react to her words before Lily continued, her voice now even more resolute. "My mom isn't like what they say. My mom loves me and does everything to take care of me. You don't understand my mom. She works so hard. And if there are any mistakes, it's because our life has been tough, not because she doesn't deserve to raise me." Claire looked at her daughter with a heart weighed down. In that moment, Claire felt as if all the sadness and disappointment she had carried for so long was suddenly lifted, though it was a sadness intertwined with boundless gratitude. She never expected that in what seemed like the most hopeless moment, it would be Lily who would save them. The sense of helplessness and failure Claire had felt was replaced by a deep admiration for her daughter. At just 10 years old, Lily had the courage to speak the truth that the adults were afraid to say, to stand up and defend her mother from the lies. In that moment, though the tears still streamed down her cheeks, Claire felt a new spark of hope flicker within her. She understood that no matter how hard life became, as long as there was love and courage, all injustices could be torn apart. And at this very moment, Lily was not only her daughter, but the true winner. Claire sat there, unable to take her eyes off Lily as her daughter stood tall, head held high, staring straight at the adults in the courtroom, speaking the truth that no one could deny. A surge of pride welled up in Claire's heart, but alongside it was an indescribable pain. She saw her daughter, a mere 10-year-old, shouldering a responsibility no child should ever bear. Though Lily spoke the truth to protect her, Claire couldn't help but feel a deep sorrow when thinking about what her daughter had already endured. She could never forget the sleepless nights, the tense hours when she fought not only for her own life, but for Lily's future as well. All those efforts, the sacrifices that seemed invisible at the time, were now reflected in her daughter's powerful gaze. The pain Claire felt wasn't just about seeing Lily grow up too soon, but also the knowledge that every action Lily took, every word she spoke, was a result of the exhaustion and disappointment Claire had faced. Claire never wanted her daughter to carry the burdens she had borne all her life. Lily didn't deserve to learn how to fight, to uncover the dark secrets the adults tried to hide. Claire didn't want her daughter to stand up against the powerful, didn't want her to witness the pain that Claire herself had suffered. Every moment of seeing Lily bravely rise to her feet only amplified the sense of loss in Claire's heart. She wanted to protect her, to give Lily a happy childhood, but life wouldn't allow that. The overwhelming pain surged within Claire as she realized that their lives had changed forever. Ever since Richard had left their lives, nothing had been the same. Despite Claire's best efforts to keep things calm, she couldn't stop the wounds life had left, and now Lily, her little girl, had to learn how to deal with things Claire never wanted her to face. Claire didn't want to see Lily grow up in pain, but she also knew that sometimes these hardships were what would make her daughter stronger, even though they were her own losses. Claire took a deep breath, trying to control the emotions swirling inside her. She couldn't let this pain make her weak, couldn't let Lily see her falter. But in that moment, looking into her daughter's eyes, Claire knew that no matter how much they had been through, the only thing she could do was protect her child. No matter how life changed, she would never let her daughter face the world alone. The pain they both carried might be immense, but Claire would continue to fight, not just for herself, but for Lily's future, so that one day Lily wouldn't have to bear the burdens Claire had had to endure. Richard sat there, his face still wearing a smug smile, but his eyes revealed tension and anger. He could not accept that Lily, a child, had the power to disrupt the strategy he had so carefully constructed throughout the trial. Every time Lily stood up, Richard became visibly displeased, attempting to counter every word she spoke with a contemptuous attitude. "Lily doesn't understand what's happening," he said, his voice cold and abrasive. "She's just a child. How can anyone trust what she says when it's clear her understanding is so limited?" Each word Richard spoke felt like a slap to Claire's heart, a blatant attempt to invalidate everything Lily had done. But Lily did not back down. She stood there unshaken, facing Richard and his accusations. Every time Richard spoke, Lily grew even stronger, and every detail she had written in her small notebook became clearer than ever before. Though she didn't fully understand everything happening in the courtroom, Lily knew exactly what she had witnessed, the words she had recorded, and the signs of abnormality that the adults couldn't see. When Richard dismissed each piece of evidence, Lily calmly repeated her observations, not the least bit worried or fearful. She knew that no matter how many people refused to listen, the truth would still stand. Despite this, no one in the courtroom truly acknowledged what Lily had said. Her words seemed insufficient to change the minds of the judges and lawyers. They looked at her with skepticism, assuming that a child couldn't grasp the complexities of life and couldn't provide valuable evidence. Richard's lawyers merely scoffed and continued to impose their views, while the others in the room listened quietly but didn't truly give weight to Lily's words. Despite Lily's best efforts, the legal system they were up against wasn't easily swayed by the voice of a small child. Once again, the sense of injustice overwhelmed Claire. She looked at Lily, heartbroken to see her daughter face the denial and indifference of the legal system that was supposed to protect justice. She couldn't believe that everything Lily had done, all the evidence she had provided, wasn't being given the respect it deserved. Claire knew their fight wouldn't be easy, but in that moment, she grew even more resolute. Even if the legal system didn't recognize Lily's truth, Claire knew that the truth would never be buried forever. And no matter what happened today, she and Lily would continue to fight for justice and for their future. Claire sat there in the cold courtroom, feeling as if the world around her was slowly fading. Every sound, every word seemed distant, no longer as clear as before. The relentless criticisms, the denials, the skeptical looks from the judges, and Richard's smug smiles made her feel as though she was being sucked into an inescapable vortex. Each time she tried to speak, to defend herself and Lily, she felt her strength slipping away, as though she had lost all faith in the system she had always trusted. Even though she had done her best, even though she had fought tirelessly, Claire felt as though there was nothing left to hold on to. The loneliness engulfed her mind, not because of a lack of affection from others, but because she felt like she was facing everything alone. She had given her all, spent her youth working and caring for Lily, but now all her efforts seemed in vain. Richard, with his sharp words and cunning tactics, still managed to maintain the upper hand, and she, the mother fighting for her daughter, was left powerless, unable to do anything but sit there watching the injustice rise higher with each passing minute. The sadness felt like a fog that enveloped her, obscuring everything around her. Though she tried to breathe deeply and regain composure, Claire couldn't escape the heaviness in her heart. Everything had become more than she could bear. The months of struggling with work, with life's hardships, and now the resistance from those in the courtroom. Everything seemed to make Claire feel more tired than ever. She couldn't understand why things had to be this hard, why each effort, each step she took, was being pushed back. And then she realized that life doesn't always have justice, that there aren't always rewards for hard work. Questions gnawed at her mind. Had she done enough? Was she strong enough to protect Lily, to give her a better future? The exhaustion felt heavier with each passing moment, as if she were standing before an insurmountable mountain, unable to climb it. But what hurt Claire more than anything was not the physical fatigue, but the fear that Lily would have to continue living in an unjust world where the voices of a child and a single mother like her held no weight. She sat there, trying to regain composure, but the sadness still lingered. The injustice, the numbness in her heart, all felt like thorns piercing her soul. Yet she knew one thing: Lily needed her, and she couldn't give up. No matter how tired, no matter how powerless she felt, Claire knew she had to keep fighting for her daughter. After the long, tense days in the courtroom, with fatigue and frustration nearly reaching their peak, Claire began to sense a glimmer of hope when she received help from some trusted friends. One of them was Sarah, a longtime friend in the finance industry whom Claire had helped with a few tasks in the past. Sarah, with her solid expertise and passion for uncovering the truth, agreed to help Claire uncover the dark secrets Richard had tried to conceal. On the evenings after the trial, instead of returning to her apartment, Claire spent time with Sarah, searching for clues in the financial reports that Richard had secretly hidden. Sarah used her experience to analyze the documents and draw conclusions that not everyone could see. The numbers, which appeared harmless in the financial reports, now revealed a deep connection to shady transactions, unexplained sums of money that Richard could not account for. Each small discovery was a significant step in exposing the secrets that Richard had been trying to cover up. Although Claire was still overwhelmed by the complexity of these findings, she felt a newfound optimism. Each document, each new piece of evidence Sarah uncovered, was a glimmer of light in the darkness Richard had tried to create. But the most surprising thing wasn't the numbers that Sarah discovered. It was the details Lily had revealed in the trial. The little girl, with her sharp intuition that the adults had missed, had recorded crucial information that no one else had noticed. Throughout the trial, Lily had overheard bits of information that Richard's lawyers had inadvertently exposed. She didn't just record their words. She also noted the brief exchanges between Richard and his lawyer when they thought no one was paying attention. These small details, like an untold story, became the key to uncovering Richard's financial secrets. Claire was amazed to realize that it was Lily, with her keen eyes and the attention she had given to the trial, who had uncovered things the adults had failed to notice. One of the important discoveries Lily had made was a call Richard had made during a break in the trial, a secret call that seemed to go unnoticed by anyone in the courtroom. In that call, Richard and a man named Bradley discussed a large sum of money being transferred through a secret account in a foreign bank. Claire and Sarah not only realized that Richard had lied to the court, but they also uncovered that he was trying to hide a massive sum of money that he had transferred through shady deals. With each new discovery, Claire felt stronger. She not only found evidence to support her case, but she also felt empowered by her daughter's role in this. Lily, though just a child, had helped her immensely in uncovering the truth. Claire understood that this fight was not just about her, but also about everything Lily had to endure. The little girl had proven that even though small, her voice could change the course of their lives. Although the evidence that Claire and Sarah had uncovered could help her win the trial, in that moment, as the details were brought to light, an indescribable wave of pain washed over her, consuming her heart. What she had just discovered about Richard, secret money transfers, shady transactions he had carried out behind her back, made her feel as though she had been brutally betrayed in both love and marriage. Claire had always given her best, always placing her trust in the man she had once loved, but now she realized that everything she had believed in, everything she had hoped for, had been lies. Looking back on all the years she had spent with Richard, Claire felt as though a fog had obscured her vision. She hadn't noticed the signs of betrayal, hadn't seen that the man she had given her youth to, the man she had built a family with, was capable of such terrible actions. The sadness and disappointment hit her like a crashing wave, leaving her breathless. She couldn't stop asking herself whether all her efforts had really been worth it. Were the sacrifices she had made, the sweat and tears, meaningless when Richard could so easily betray her and their daughter? Each time she recalled Richard's words in court, the criticisms about her ability to be a mother, the words he used to judge and belittle her, Claire felt an overwhelming sense of insignificance and shame. Not only did she feel hurt by his betrayal, but she also felt forgotten by the legal system. Although she had fought with all her might, in the end, all she received was indifference and disdain from those around her. This sadness didn't just stem from Richard's betrayal, but from her disappointment in the system she had trusted. They couldn't see everything she had sacrificed, couldn't see the love and dedication she had given to Lily. As the tears began to roll down her cheeks, Claire felt as if she was standing at a crossroads, unable to turn back. She wanted to collapse, to give up everything, but then she looked into Lily's bright eyes, and the pain suddenly transformed into a strong resolve. She couldn't let these tears mark the end of their journey. Lily needed her, and she had to be a role model for her daughter, to show her that no matter how cruel life might be, as long as there was love and resilience, everything could be changed. Although the sadness still lingered, Claire understood that she had to keep going. She had to fight, not just for herself, but for Lily, for a brighter future for her daughter. Richard might have lied to her, might have betrayed her, but Claire wouldn't let that define her or her life. She wouldn't allow that betrayal to paralyze her heart. Instead, it would become the driving force to rise above it, to prove that no matter how much life hurt her, she could stand strong and win. Although her heart remained filled with sorrow, and the feelings of humiliation and betrayal lingered in every step she took, Claire knew there was no turning back. The sadness could not be hidden, but it would not stop her from moving forward. After everything that had happened, after discovering the dark secrets Richard had deliberately concealed, and after all her efforts seemed to be dismissed by the legal system, Claire made the decision that she would no longer let disappointment control her life. This time, She wasn't fighting for herself alone. She was fighting for Lily. She was fighting to ensure that her daughter would have a better future, a future not suffocated by lies and the poor choices of adults. Each morning, Claire felt the tension in her body, the fatigue from sleepless nights spent thinking about this battle, but inside her, a new determination arose. She would not let Richard's betrayal and the indifference of the legal system defeat her. This time, she would not stand still and endure. She knew life would never be the same again, that she could not return to the peaceful days of the past, but Claire did not want to wait for everything to get worse. She wanted to be the one to control her destiny, to be a role model for Lily, to show her daughter that no matter how unjust life might be, love and perseverance would always be the key to change. Though her resolve was clear, the sense of loss still clung to her like a shadow that never left. With every step, Claire still felt the emptiness, the void in her life. She still remembered the days when Richard was her partner, when she believed their family would remain strong forever. This loss was not just the end of a marriage, but the loss of belief in a fair world, in a life where people didn't have to constantly fight to get what they deserved. However, despite the loss that still haunted her, Claire knew she couldn't let it paralyze her. Every decision she made, each next step, would be a step taken in hope, in the belief that she could do better and that in the end, the truth would be respected. She looked at Lily, the daughter she loved above all, and her heart swelled with determination. Lily would not have to live in her failure. She would fight. She would rise, not just for herself, but for her daughter, so that one day Lily could be proud of her mother, of the resilience they had both overcome together. Although the darkness of loss still lingered, Claire knew that no matter how much suffering there was, her resolve would never fade. She would continue to fight, not only to regain custody of Lily, but also to restore her faith in herself and in the good things life had to offer. The sorrow might never disappear, but it would not make her surrender, because in the end, she knew Lily needed her, and she would never give up on this fight. With the help of financial experts Sarah had connected her with, Claire began to sense small glimmers of light piercing through the dense darkness Richard and his secrets had created. Each day that passed, she was no longer just a mother trying to protect her rights as a parent. She was becoming a warrior for the truth, for justice. The financial experts, with their vast experience in tracking complex transactions and uncovering financial traces, had become vital allies in this battle. One of the first small steps forward came when Claire received a batch of documents from financial investigations. The numbers that seemed harmless began to reveal suspicious connections. Money transfers into accounts Richard had tried to hide, transactions with shady companies, all slowly started to unravel. Claire felt like she was gradually gaining control. Though many questions remained unanswered, these small steps weren't monumental, but each discovery felt like a small victory, fortifying her belief in the battle and offering a faint hope that the truth would eventually be revealed. However, inside Claire, the sense of loss still clung to her. Every time she looked at the documents proving Richard's deceit, the sorrow would flood back. She recalled the days gone by, those moments that seemed so happy when she and Richard were a family. Those memories now felt like scars that couldn't be erased. Claire felt as though she had been too quick to trust that man, and the price for that trust had been too high. But at the same time, each time she discovered a new detail in the documents, hope flickered. Though it was still fragile, it felt like every step she took in this fight could lead to a change, even if that change wasn't certain yet. Still, every time Claire saw the pages with complex numbers, she couldn't help but feel a gradual relief replacing the exhaustion. These small victories, though not enough to defeat Richard immediately, were signs that the truth was beginning to rise to the surface. The feelings of loss and the pain inside Claire couldn't vanish instantly, but these discoveries helped her understand that no matter how cruel life could be, she could keep moving forward. Each new piece of evidence brought her one step closer to the justice she and Lily deserved. Though there was still much to be done, these small steps gave Claire a new source of motivation. She felt less alone. She had Sarah, she had sincere friends, and most importantly, she had Lily, the reason she kept standing strong. The sense of hope started to push through the sadness, though it was still fragile, like a faint light in the dense darkness. But with each step, Claire became more determined, not just for herself but for Lily and for the justice they both deserved. The final confrontation had arrived, and this time the atmosphere in the courtroom was more tense than ever. Claire walked in with a heart full of anxiety, but she couldn't deny that a new strength was rising within her. Everything had changed, and it was Lily, with her brave actions and sharp discoveries, who had reignited the flame of hope in her. Although Claire still felt fear, the feeling of uncertainty constantly clung to her. This time she didn't feel alone. She had Lily, a 10-year-old girl, but one who was stronger and smarter than anyone could imagine. Richard sat there, still the arrogant man Claire once knew, but this time his gaze lacked the certainty he once held. The words Claire had found in the financial evidence, the lies he had told, were now brought to light. Claire could feel the shift in the room, as though everything Richard had done in the dark was now exposed. He may have tried to avoid the truth, but now everything was in Claire's hands. As the trial continued, Richard and his lawyer kept trying to blame Claire, attempting to devalue the evidence she and Lily had gathered. Every time Richard spoke, Claire felt a wave of humiliation and anger rising within her. But she knew this was the most important moment, the time to stand up not just for herself, but for Lily, who had proven the invisible power of love and courage. When the judge finally called for Claire's turn, she stood up, her hands trembling but firm. Each step she took toward the witness stand felt like a victory of resilience. She looked at Richard, then at the judges, listening to every word she spoke. Although her heart was filled with anxiety, she could feel the strength coming from everything Lily had done, and she knew this was not the time to hesitate. She began to speak, her voice no longer trembling but full of determination. "I am not perfect, but I have always been a mother willing to do anything for my daughter. Everything I've done for Lily. Richard may make accusations, but the evidence that Lily and I have gathered will tell the truth." Each word she spoke echoed through the room, and when Claire recounted what Lily had done, the secrets the little girl had uncovered, everyone in the courtroom fell silent. Because of what Lily had revealed, because of the courage and insight of a child, the truth could no longer be hidden. Richard was no longer the only one with control over the situation, and Claire felt a gentle sense of relief. She knew now that justice would no longer be an elusive concept. Lily had helped her find this path, and she would not give up. Although Claire still felt anxious, seeing Lily's gaze from the back of the room filled her with a powerful shift within her. She was no longer just a weak single mother. She was a strong mother capable of facing challenges and overcoming everything for her daughter. And when the trial ended, she didn't just feel satisfaction from seeing justice served. She felt a profound pride in Lily, the child who had taught her that strength doesn't come from age or power, but from standing up for the truth, no matter the obstacles. The anxiety still lingered, but now it couldn't stop Claire's steps. She had fought and would continue to fight for Lily, for justice, and for the strength she had rediscovered within herself. Although Claire had made some significant progress, sensing the recognition from the court and the shift in the atmosphere of the trial, the sadness never left her. Each step forward, each new discovery about the truth, no matter how important, could not fill the void left by the shattered marriage in her heart. Every time she thought back to the past, to the days when she and Richard were once a family, Claire couldn't help but feel the old wounds sting again. The promises, the dreams of building a future together, were now nothing but faint memories, all broken by lies and betrayal. Even though she could see the light at the end of the tunnel in this fight, Claire understood that this victory couldn't erase all the pain she had endured. Confronting the secrets Richard had hidden, she realized that betrayal was not just about deceit, but the loss of everything she had once trusted and loved. These wounds weren't only on her body. They ran deep into her soul, scars that would never fully heal, no matter how many victories or truths were revealed. Claire recognized that even though life would move forward and she and Lily might start anew, the old wounds would always remain. Sometimes the greatest victories are not what we achieve, but how we learn to live with the losses we've experienced. Claire couldn't erase the past, but she knew that she had to learn to accept it, to continue living despite the imperfections she once dreamed away. This sense of loss was not something that could be easily overcome, but Claire also realized that sadness was not something that could stop her from moving forward. Though the pain would always be in her heart, a part of her understood that it was an inseparable part of her journey toward growth and self-awareness. When she looked at Lily, she realized that her daughter was not just the reason she fought, but also the reason she didn't give up on herself. Lily had given Claire a reason to keep living, to keep loving, and to keep hoping. Though sad and wounded, Claire understood that victory could never be perfect, but one thing she could be sure of was that she had done everything in her power to protect Lily, to give her daughter a better future. And even though those wounds still lingered, Claire felt a sense of relief, A little peace knowing that despite how cruel life could be, she could still stand tall. She could still move forward. Finally, after long days of tension, the trial ended with a favorable ruling for Claire. The court decided that Lily would stay with her, a victory that Claire had longed for throughout this entire ordeal. She stood still in the courtroom, unable to believe what she had just heard. After so much suffering, so much exhaustion, this battle had finally yielded the result she had hoped for. However, as soon as the judgment was read, an odd feeling overtook Claire. Even though she had won, she didn't feel the complete joy she had expected. Lily would stay with her, but the price she had to pay was too great. The tears, the sleepless nights, the months of battling unforeseen challenges, all of those things couldn't be easily erased by a single verdict. Claire glanced at Lily, the daughter she had protected with all her might, and a feeling of emptiness welled up inside her. Although she had triumphed in this struggle, Claire couldn't forget the past, couldn't forget what she had lost in her marriage with Richard. The feeling of loss remained, like a wound that could never fully heal, no matter how much time passed. Though the court had ruled that Lily would stay with her, Claire understood that this victory wasn't the conclusion she had imagined. It didn't bring complete joy because there were still pains inside her that couldn't be healed. She couldn't forget the past, couldn't overlook the betrayal that Richard had caused. While this victory was a significant step, it couldn't fill the void left by the loss. Claire had sacrificed so much, not just time and effort, but parts of her heart, parts she could never get back. As the court session adjourned, Claire felt exhausted and drained, not because of the battle, but because of the wounds still present, the emotions still unresolved. She turned to look at Lily, the daughter who had helped her through it all, and though her heart was filled with sadness, there was also resilience. She knew that while this fight had ended, their lives would continue, and she would have to learn to face the past, learn to heal the wounds in order to move forward. Victory was never perfect, but Claire understood that she would never give up. She would continue to love Lily, continue to fight for her daughter and for herself. But she also realized that even though she had gained custody, there were still things she couldn't reclaim: her past, the trust that had been broken, and the parts of life she hadn't been able to protect. With the court's decision, a new chapter in Claire and Lily's life began. Although this victory brought relief, rebuilding a shattered life was no easy task. The two of them were starting over, with new challenges ahead. Claire couldn't deny that the months that had passed had left deep scars in her. But with each step they took, no matter how small, it was a new beginning. Every morning when she looked at Lily, she found the strength to keep going. Their lives would still be difficult, but Claire realized that she couldn't live forever in the feeling of loss. Though the wounds from the past were still fresh, she knew the past couldn't define their future. Lily needed her, and Claire understood that she had to be the guiding light for her daughter, to show Lily that despite the hardships of life, they could still stand strong. They weren't just victims of circumstance. They were warriors finding themselves again. Day by day, hour by hour, the love Claire had for Lily, along with her determination to never give up, would be the next steps in their journey. Their steps would not just be propelled by personal efforts, but also by the deep connection between mother and daughter. A mother's love for her child never fades, and that love was the guiding fire that would help them overcome it all. Together, they would learn to heal the wounds, rebuild their lives from the pieces, and become stronger than ever. Claire knew that though the road ahead would be tough, they would walk through it together because nothing was stronger than the love of a mother. The story concluded on a bright morning as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, illuminating the simple room where Claire and Lily were sitting together. Lily sat on her mother's lap, both gazing out the window at a new world full of hope and opportunities opening before them. The warm light of the morning symbolized their new future. Claire felt an unusual peace, a feeling she hadn't known in a long time. Though there were still worries and challenges ahead, she now knew that she was no longer alone. Lily, with a radiant smile on her face, looked at her mother with eyes full of trust. Claire smiled back at her daughter. She understood that even though life had battered them, love and resilience would help them overcome any obstacle. Nothing is permanent, and though the pain of the past may linger for a while, Claire knew they could start anew. Love had helped them through the darkness, and that love would be the light guiding them on every step ahead. Claire realized that no matter how difficult life could get, as long as there was love and determination, they could overcome anything. She held Lily's hand tightly, feeling the warmth of her daughter's small hand, knowing that they would never give up on each other. The future still lay wide open before them. And in that moment, all the sadness and disappointment gave way to new hope. The story didn't end with a victory in the courtroom. It ended with a victory of love, perseverance, and the unyielding strength of a mother for her daughter. Thank you so much for following Claire and Lily's journey. Your support means the world to us. If this story moved you and you believe in the power of love, strength, and perseverance, please consider hitting the subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss an inspiring moment. By subscribing, you're helping us share more powerful stories that matter. Thank you for being part of our emotional journey. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, together we can overcome anything. See you in the next story.